Welcome to the third day of the 2018 Toronto International Film Festival. My name is Michael Lerman. I'm the primetime programmer here, and welcome to the world premiere of Sorry for Your Loss. To begin with, though, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the land of the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, and we are so excited and thankful to be working with the community today and every day of every year. I also would quickly, yes. I also would quickly like to thank Facebook and Facebook Watch, who've been our amazing partners to put this event together. Can I get a round of applause for them? They're so awesome to work with. And Big Beach, who is the production company and has been really lovely and brought it to our attention in the first place. What do I say before it? I would say, you know, when Peter Surratt from Big Beach called me, he started describing it, and it just, word after word, detail after detail, name after name, meant so much and seemed to really just resonate with me. And then I saw it, and it so far exceeded my expectations that I cannot wait for you guys to experience this. And it is with great pleasure now that I bring to the stage director James Ponsoldt and creator Kit Stein-Kellner.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, Michael, for having us. Thank you, TIFF, and thank you, everyone, for being here. We put our hearts and our souls and all our guts into this show, and we're so excited to show you the first 4 episodes of our series.
Yeah, we're, again, just to reiterate that, we're grateful to be here. Thank you to TIFF. This is my favorite festival in the whole world, so we really hope you love it. And we were so fortunate to have an amazing cast on the show. We love them dearly, and we have 3 members of our cast here, so I'll bring them out. We have Kelly Marie Tran. Mamoudou Athie. And Elizabeth Olsen. Ache. Thank you.
Anything you guys want to say beforehand, or no?
We'll be here afterwards.
Yeah,
we hope you enjoy it.
We'll have plenty to talk about.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome the cast and crew of Sorry for Your Loss back to the stage. All right, we should introduce Lizzie, too.
This is Lizzie Weiss, our showrunner.
So I guess I'll just start with Kit, because I feel like that's the best place to start with it. Where did the idea come from? Where did you start putting this together in your mind?
Yeah, of course. Well, we've all seen the first episode. So that flashback sequence where Lee wakes up in the middle of the night and it's raining cats and dogs and her husband is not there, and she thinks the worst has happened, is based on something that happened to me. And my husband ended up being okay, but I was not okay. I was very shaken by that experience and just very haunted by it. And it was a year, 18-month period in which some people I knew had died. And so I just felt at that time just very vulnerable and unsafe. And so I started thinking about who this young woman was who could survive this impossible thing. And as I started to think about her and the people in her life, I fell in love with these people, and this story just started burning a hole in my gut, and I had to tell it.
Once you started writing, where did everyone else kind of fall into the process? Like, where did the production come together on it?
Yeah, of course. So I wrote the script, and I rewrote it a million times, as any writer in the audience knows that is the process. And then we started figuring out who Lee would be. And when Lizzie's name came up, it was just like a bolt from the blue. Lizzie Olsen. When Elizabeth Olsen and her name landed on my lap, look, I've always loved Lizzie's work, and so I was so excited to meet her, and she read the script and responded. And I will never forget when we first sat down and started talking, and I realized I had written this part for her without even knowing I had written this part for her.
I don't know what that says.
I mean, I love Lee and I love you, so I think it says a lot of good things about the character and the human. No, it was, and I'm a skeptic. Like, I really don't believe in fate or meant to be. But it was just this, it was one of the more magical moments of my life, just realizing that that Lizzie Olsen and I were supposed to do this together. And sort of I don't know, I kind of compare it to like the Wizard of Oz, where you go down the Yellow Brick Road and you keep meeting the right people and forming this this team, because that's what happened with James Ponsoldt. That's what happened with Lizzie Weiss when we ended up casting Kelly and Mamoudou and Jovan and Janet, who aren't here. Everyone was exactly who I hoped they would be, as Lizzie, who helped me run the show and supervised, James, the producing director, our cast, and also everybody elevated the material and made it so much more wonderful and dimensional than I ever could have imagined. So it's been the joy of my life doing this.
And I want to ask Elizabeth Olsen. You came on so passionately. You came on not only to star in it, but you're producing it as well. What spoke to you the most in the material when you first read it?
I just think that there's this like weird impulse you have as an actor with characters where you just feel like there's some unspoken thing that connects you to something that was inside someone else's head that they put to paper. And I felt that way with Lee. And on top of that, I loved the way Kit had approached grief. There was a sense of humor. I thought it was so funny that the only time the character like had a breakdown was over a donut. And it was just all in the pilot tonally of who these people are. I understood them. It was like East LA. Like I totally got the whole package. But beyond that, I do feel like an inevitable experience that everyone in the entire world has to go through is loss and death and grief. And especially as a Western culture, I feel like we don't give ourselves many ways to go through with that. And we don't really communicate about it. And we think, oh, maybe I shouldn't bring it up because we already went through that. And then you're actually not bringing something up that was so important to someone else who maybe wants to keep them alive. And you also don't know if you don't ask. And it's just it's starting those like odd, uncomfortable conversations. And I felt that it was a gap in storytelling. There was kind of this hole of talking about grief in a really grounded, tangible way that I had never seen. And so I wanted to be a part of that journey from early on with Kit and Robin Schwartz. And then we accumulated the rest of the gang. And somehow we're here.
Yeah, so speaking of the rest of the gang, one of the things is that I think the show has such a great roster of directors. It's James, but also Jessica Yu and Allison Enders and these giants of American cinema. But obviously James directing the first couple episodes, you set the tone for everyone else's work in a way. And we were just talking, and we talk a lot in the office about your work in this way, is like you have this talent for eliciting this naturalism in the actors and this just kind of calming presence in a way that feels just very real. And I was wondering if you and Kelly and Mamoudou and Lizzie can talk about your process working together and your process directing with actors.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with really great material, and then finding the right actors. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have actors like these folks, it makes the job really easy. I mean, if you're casting people who you see as creative collaborators, in the same way that you would see a cinematographer or a composer as someone who you're casting for who they are, for their ideas, for their imagination, and who you just genuinely love to watch, it makes it quite easy, and I think imbues the value system of the show or the film with exactly what you want.
No, I feel really fortunate to have worked with such a great group of people in terms of it felt like a safe space to sort of play and be vulnerable. Obviously, I've only done this and The Last Jedi, really. So like, I don't
But I mean, pretty good track record, right? Pretty good track record.
So I'm like, how much do I actually know what I'm saying? But no, truly, it was like from the beginning, we all kind of, James had us all like hang out and talk to each other about what our characters were and what those relationships were like. And also, I remember this one day we went on this weird field trip in a van where we went to all these locations, and it was just, remember that?
James really wanted
nice.
us to see where we actually live, just because you are, I don't know, what's the word if you're a city file?
Yeah, he
That
knows
can, maybe
everything
you
about-
coined it. Maybe it's that.
I thought you were going to say psychopath.
Wait. So tell us what that means. Like city file, what does that mean?
Oh, James is an encyclopedia of Los Angeles. Ask him about any restaurant, any street corner.
I mean, listen, I think most of the films and I think television shows that we love, I think location is part of the soul of the story and one of the characters. And I think this is a show that intentionally takes place in Los Angeles, not just Los Angeles, Northeast Los Angeles. And, Los Angeles Plays Itself, which is like the great documentary about LA, sort of points out that LA is sort of a surrogate for a lot of other places, as is Toronto sometimes, but it sometimes has an anonymity and a lacks of specificity. So, I mean, you had written it as Pasadena, and we really delineated that Beautiful Beast was Highland Park, and they lived in not just even Pasadena, Altadena. You guys lived in Angelino Heights, and we wanted to give a sense of hyper regionalism and class and things that were, for people that lived in LA that they might pick up, and for other folks it just would feel lived in.
Sorry, I cut off that story to do the diversion, but
No, it was great. Yeah.
Did you?
Oh, right. Well, the thing that I love about working with James is he just knows how to leave you alone, which I think is an amazing skill for a director. And then knowing when to like come in and help, which this job wasn't easy, but it was simple. I mean, it's definitely simple to say yes, but it was also simple to like, to feel comforted that you were working with an amazing cast and a director that knows how to help you. Yeah.
But again, it like when you have actors, like I remember seeing the screening of Martha Marcy May Marlene at Sundance and being like, oh my God. I remember being at the Burbank AMC 16 and you seeing a little independent film. So I remember the first time we met over Skype and you popped off the screen. I was like, this is the most dynamic human I've ever met in my life. Genuinely, I just love watching you, so it makes it really easy.
Can we all just keep complimenting each other,
That's really
please?
That was my only goal for this panel. That was my only goal. I wanted to ask Mamoudou, though, what's so interesting, and I don't want to spoil anything, but what's so interesting about these episodes is you live as a memory, but you live so vibrantly inside the character. Was there some sort of special preparation in terms of the way the two of you interact to think about like where you're going and as support for the rest of the scenes, as support for who you are as a character?
No, I think our relationship was primarily founded on listening and just like being with each other as fully and presently as we could. I know it sounds so
No, but I feel like that is like the only thing you can do is if you're supposed to have some intimate relationship with someone, then that means the two of you on that day should be really present with one another. And it was, I don't know, we just talked a lot about, I mean, what you do is like a nerdy, character study thing, and you try and figure out as much as possible, and also as much that maybe she doesn't know about him, and we would have secrets from each other with James, and James would be like, maybe he doesn't know, maybe she doesn't know. What were you gonna say?
No, it just kind of reminded me of, I remember a teacher of mine once told me, he was like, you know what it means? You know what chemistry really means? It's like if you go see a play and the audience leaves the theater and they're like, the play was kind of cool, but they didn't really have too much chemistry. What it really means is like that actor's doing what they're going to do, and that actor's going to do what they're going to do, and no one's listening and talking to each other. That's all chemistry really is. And I was like, oh.
I feel like it's good advice for a fictional marriage and a real marriage. It's like, listen to each other. Be very present.
Just give it a go.
You're like, I was just writing real life, and you guys are acting my real life. And you know, speaking of this roster of directors and the kind of consistent tone, I wanted to ask Lizzie Weiss about, you know, keeping the train running, bringing in other voices, but making sure that it's consistent. Because in some ways, you know, something I love about the show is that it almost feels like a long indie movie as opposed to something that's very episodic. And that means you need consistency in a way that maybe something like Boyhood would be, where you check in, but it's also, you know, has some consistency to it in tone.
Well, I'll just say, first of all, it's because Lizzie Olsen was an exec producer and James was our producing director. So they were on set all the time, and Lizzie was at every single meeting that she could be at, not just as an actress, but, you know, at every single concept meeting if she was available. So I think it was just really helpful having them the whole time. To keep that, Kit was on set all the time. So we split our duties. Kind of, I was more in the room, and Kit's a playwright, and she really loves being with the actors, and I think that helped a lot. Another thing, this is not what you asked me, but I just kept thinking when you were asking about loss, two other things that we really tried to do was, and I noticed it watching it back to back, it's about all kinds of loss. And, you know, Richard, you notice, talks about losing a job, and he became really emotionally unmoored, and then, of course, losing a dog. We had someone in the writer's room talk about getting ill and for life losing a sense of confidence in their body. And so the theme that we really kept going back to was just all kinds of loss. And, you know, for it to go on, we're just really going to touch on that. You know, of course, it's Lee's story and this family story about losing Matt, but it's a lot about loss sort of as a bigger picture. And then the second thing is memory, and you touched on that we, as more on the next episodes, hopefully, you know, you're now inspired to keep watching. We really deal with that more about how Lee starts thinking, did I remember everything correctly? She did a little bit in the first few episodes. Were my memories accurate? So I just wanted to talk about that because that's something that we're really excited about, and to keep exploring that.
Yeah, and to that point, my last question I wanted to kind of ask of all of you is what strikes me about the show is it's not a thing about sympathy. It's not a thing about watching it and eliciting grief, like sympathy in a way through grief. It's more about this brutal empathy. It's about trying to connect on a very deep level around all of these losses that you're talking about for all of these characters. And I was wondering, you know, basically my question is how do you keep to that place when all of these people, you guys seem like such a family as a unit making it, but everyone in the show in some ways is dealing with their own shit, for lack of a better term, you know? So how do you kind of keep to that place when you're making it, you know, for any of you?
What was that? The thing we showed, there was a little cartoon that was about empathy.
Sympathy versus empathy.
Versus empathy. It was pretty beautiful. I don't remember. I know what, if you could tell me
essentially
who it was, who did it. I want to give credit.
It's Brene Brown is the voice, who's a wonderful, I believe, clinical psychologist, but now has become like a real voice for resilience and advocacy for mental health. But anyway, it's a cartoon that illustrates I believe it's a rabbit at the top of a hole and the bear at the bottom of a hole, and the rabbit sort of shouting down like, "You'll be okay, everything's gonna be fine, chin up." And it's not making the bear feel any better because he's just in the hole by himself. That's sympathy versus empathy is the rabbit takes a ladder down to the bottom of the hole and just sits there with the bear. It's interesting. I think, speaking of Facebook, I think I clicked on this link on Facebook that reading fiction makes people more empathetic. And I believe the same is true for film and TV, that you maybe don't know how to act in a situation in real life or don't know how to relate to someone else, but from a safe distance, if you can watch characters engage in something, it can inspire you to be more emotionally intelligent, more empathetic, a better person to the people around you. And I do hope, I mean, again, this is a very tricky subject that we are not taught adequately how to deal with. I really wish we could like give second graders a class in emotional intelligence and just teach them how to be good to other people, but we don't. So
I feel like that's a whole new show.
Or eighth grade.
My plan for the American education system. But what we can do is tell a story about this thing we are too afraid to talk about and spark conversation that way. And I think we can do that with the show, and I'm proud of that.
All right, well, I'm going to open it up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions? I'll start right here.
Okay, this is for Elizabeth and Mamoudou. In some recent movies like Kodak Chrome and Unicorn Store, are played characters that are kind of supporting people with mental health. Do you feel like you take anything from like that experience going into this role, or do you just come into it fresh?
So the question was about some recent movies that you've made, Kodachrome and Unicorn Store, and you're supporting characters who have mental health issues and supporting them, yeah. And do you feel like you took anything from those roles and that you learned and brought them here?
I didn't feel like Bree's character had yeah. Oh.
I was thinking that too, but I didn't want to walk.
Maybe that says something about me.
It
But
felt like
well,
she was scared of like public, and you're kind of like her support.
sure. Well, I just never thought of it like that. No, I didn't actually. Yeah, to be honest.
I like never compare from like one job. It kind of goes away, but you always like hopefully the reason why we like doing our jobs is because we learn stuff along the way. So maybe is like my answer. Yeah, because I do think that you have to take something away with you from every job, and whether or not I've like analyzed exactly what that was from specific jobs in order to be here and play certain characters, but I do think there's some weird layering effect because you're changing as a person while you're going through these experiences. So I think it's a totally valid question. Yeah.
Let's go back here.
As much as possible, I know obviously you know where the story is going, but what do you hope for the audience to know more about the characters and their growth as the story continues?
So the question was, what do you hope for the audience to know more about their characters and their growth as the story continues?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if know is the verb I would pick. I think when we wrote the show and produced the show, we always talk about feeling, about does this moment, does this scene, does this story make me feel something? And so I think what I would hope for audiences to do is to be able to just feel intensely with these characters.
It's totally valid.
And then you can think about it later. You can know something in a week. I love that. I love an experience with a movie or TV show where it just gets me in the gut and I feel something, and then a few weeks later I realize why I felt what I felt. I'm okay with that knowledge coming later, but I think I want it to be a visceral experience first and foremost.
Right, completely.
Hopefully it's just like characters you want to hang around. Obviously we do have a little bit of a mystery, but I always find that, with TV shows, it's always, do you want to hang around with the characters more? Do you want to be around them? And I just hope that we still, that week to week, you're like, I want to be around that family and be on that journey with her.
Yeah, I mean, just really quickly, when we talk about the various genres or subgenres of the show, the mystery of the show, the comedy of the show, the goal was always to have it feel true to life, because life is full of mysteries. Other people are deeply mysterious. Life is hilarious. There are moments of intense comedy. And so that was just the hope, is to kind of take genres from real life and put them organically into the fabric of our show.
Right here in the center.
I was just captivated. The whole language. I just wanted to hear a little bit about how you managed to keep the constantly captivating the audience. Tell us some of the tricks that you
So the question was, how do you keep captivating the audience throughout the runtime of the 4 episodes that we showed?
Whoa. No.
I would say excellent writing, excellent acting, and fantastic editing from people like our editor, Darren Navarro, who's in the audience, and Hilda Rasula, who's not. We have other crew here as well, if we could just give them a hand.
Yes.
Thanks for the question.
Right here.
First of all, congratulations. I'm sure this is really big for you, and it's amazing to see you do this and everything. With this being OTT and direct to consumer, I'm really curious. It seems very traditionally made in a lot of ways, and you have a showrunner. But what was the relationship like with Facebook, and was that different? Was there a mindset around how is this content delivered to people?
What does OTT mean?
P.S. They're right next to you. Facebook's
Yeah.
right there.
They're staring you down. No, but I mean, maybe this is a good time to talk about the release.
What does over-the-top content mean?
the strategy, like just the date and the rollout a little bit. Yeah.
We'll do nuts and bolts, and then I'll answer that question. So these 4 episodes release all on the same day, September 18th, which is in 10 days, correct? Because today is the 8th, and that is math. For the next 3 Tuesdays, there'll be 2 episodes released at a time. So it'll be the following Tuesday, 5 and 6, then 7 and 8, then 9 and 10. So within a month, the entire first season will be on the platform. What I will say is, look, we endeavored to make the best show possible. So yes, I think we talked about our favorite shows, things that we could be inspired by, and also how we want to break our new ground. But I think how Facebook really changes the game is that you are watching on a platform where the conversation is happening right below. We deal with some really sensitive, tricky topics. The resources are right to the side. There's interactivity that I think is so important for this show because not only did we aim to really tell the best story we could, but we also aimed to create the most dynamic conversation we could. And so we're on a social platform where we can have that conversation with our viewers, which is thrilling.
And thank you to Facebook, who is right here.
Thank you, Facebook.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's sitting right next to you? I don't know if you're a plant next to them, but
When I was a kid on Christmas, we always yelled "Thank you, Santa Claus" up at the ceiling, just like wherever you are, thank you. So I feel like we're doing that with Facebook.
is that what you did on
Thanks,
Rap
Facebook.
Day? It's
Thanks, Facebook.
I think there was also a freedom in, I've worked for other networks where you do feel like, oh, that's that kind of show. And you feel like you have to, do it. Every show has their brand. And I feel like it's very new and they're doing a lot of different things. And so I think there's a freedom to, not being confined by, we are doing a certain kind of show. And they were supportive about, as Kit said, and, and Robin, who started from the beginning, saying this is the kind of show we want to make. And they were saying, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
You're not like, oh, we're making like an ABC show, which has a certain parameter, or making an ABC family show. So I think that gave us a lot of excitement and freedom because it's also new and they're starting.
It's interesting you mentioned that these 4 episodes drop on the same day. And I always joke that we ran it until we actually hit a cliffhanger. Because the first 3 kind of don't have a cliffhanger in a way. Are the other 2 that go together, did you plan to have them go together, or are they kind of written and directed that way? Or?
It wasn't planned when we were shooting, but I think it's perfect. We actually did friends and family screenings 2 at a time. So 5 and 6 did screen as a pair, 7, 8, 9, 10. And those episodes, those pairs really speak to each other. I think they have a really cool conversation with one another. So it wasn't by design, but I think it's perfect.
You should own it.
Well,
it's an original design for episodic.
No,
right?
I would find a more diplomatic answer if I was not thrilled. I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'd find something else, but I genuinely am thrilled.
We have time for a couple more. I'm going to go over here. So the question was the length of time of the shoot and the prep and just the kind of nuts and bolts of the process.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, the process for me of working with the actors is exactly the same. We tried to find actors that really inspired us, and we did, and then tried to do as much work as we could to really excavate sort of the souls of these characters. As far as prep, a healthy amount of prep for the first 2, and then after that, it's sort of, I think that's the television answer. You're sort of, a train leaves the station, and then there's less. But everyone, whether it's the cinematographer or the actors, sort of are building sort of on the shoulders of previous existing episodes and just time they've spent with these people. And I think as an audience member, you just get a deeper relationship when you spend 5 hours with these characters and hopefully much more.
Yeah, I mean, on the day, it just feels like you're making an indie film because the page count. And then for me, because I've never been a producer on anything, and I've never done television, so the day-to-day was like the past and the present, and then thinking about the future every day, and always thinking about whatever edit we were cutting, thinking about whatever episodes we're about to shoot, and thinking about my lines that day. and I've never done that before. And it was an incredible learning process, and every step of this entire job has been like the biggest learning experience. And to do it with such collaborators who welcome opinions and we welcome the dialogue was really lovely. But like the day-to-day shooting, like you don't act differently for the television, I don't think. Right?
He's like, speaker for yourself.
But you know, the writing and it does feel like, I'm sure you've heard this, but like for the viewer and the writer, the character is in your face, like in your week to week to week, and so it feels like it is more intimate, and you do stay with the character longer. So in a way, it's instead of doing one movie and you're done, I mean, you can explore so much more. I feel like I as a writer and as I'm a viewer, that's how I feel, and I love revisiting and staying with them for 50 episodes. Sorry, Mamoudou.
Oh, it's fine. No, I was just really gonna kind of just say what James said, so it's fine. It for me, it does feel different. Like the first episode, because I had it for longer, it felt like, okay, yeah, we're making a movie, or like how a movie feels typically to me. But then after that, I was like, oh, okay, every week. And I'm like, okay, it's just a different prep time, and I usually work very, slowly. So it's like, oh, this is, yeah, it's just a lot faster, which is vastly different for me. But yeah.
I think basically like Star Wars, right?
I literally was about to say I can speak of my wealth of experience, which is one thing here. I guess if I'm comparing these two experiences, which I think, like Lizzie said, everything is sort of its own experience in a sort of wonderful way. You get like a new team of people every time. But in terms of the acting, what was interesting on this is like doing Star Wars was like there's all these things that aren't actually there sometimes. And this felt like such a like it was like just us having a conversation. Do you know what I mean?
So it was Lizzie and not a tennis ball on a C-stand.
Right.
Sometimes a tennis ball is nice though.
But no. Yeah, I find that with every project I'm doing, I'm just learning so much, and I feel so fortunate to be part of this whole thing. May we continue to do more things.
Yeah. We could take one last quick one. I'll go right here in the center.
I think this whole approach in collaborating with Facebook is very interesting, and I'm wondering if anybody from Facebook is prepared just to comment on what was it about this approach that inspired that idea of collaborating on this?
That's bad.
I don't want to put them on the spot since they're not on the stage.
I do.
As the distributor.
Mina? Talk about Cheryl. Mina?
Unless you're comfortable.
Hi. Well, I can speak to it just from the way that we do any show, really. Oh.
If you want to come up, you can.
No, it's okay. So for us, hi, I'm Mina Lefebvre from Facebook. Everyone saw me introduce myself. But really, it's about these guys. For us, we look at it like any project, and this was something that when Robin gave it to me, it really hit us emotionally. And if you guys, whoever's on Facebook, we all know that a lot of times, a lot of emotion is shared on Facebook. And this is something that people unfortunately do share on Facebook, which is when you have somebody you lose, or family or friend. A lot of times you find out about it on Facebook. So it felt like the natural place for it. And adding to that, this amazing group of people, and some of them are here and some of them back home, was an amazing group to be in partnership with. And then in addition to that, we really felt like this would be a good place to have the social conversation and all the different things that the platform can do, also provide for it.
Yeah. All right, well, I want to thank Facebook. I want to thank you guys so much. I forgot to say in the beginning, because I was so excited to start, that you can also vote for this for the Girls People's Choice Award for the festival. So go to tiff.net/vote, and they're on stage looking at you right now, so there should be a lot of pressure on that. And yeah, thank you so much. September 18th, come check out the rest of the show.